Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Gilda Evans, bringing you the Autism Resource Podcast. This podcast and the ARP website are your one-stop knowledge and resource base for autism and much more. I'm happy to have Bill Walters join me as my guest today. Bill is a compassionate financial advisor who helps families navigate complex challenges with empathy and strategy. Shaped by personal experiences, overcoming childhood illness, caring for his mother with dementia, and raising a daughter with special needs, he brings heart to every client relationship. He serves on nonprofit boards, church finance committees, and coaches Special Olympics. His planning philosophy blends numbers with purpose, legacy, and love. Bill's mission is clear: to guide caregivers toward clarity and abundance with personalized, purpose-driven financial and estate planning rooted in lived experience. Welcome, Bill, and thank you so much for taking time to join me today and discuss the work that you do.
It's my pleasure to be on such a great forum and to open my heart to make a difference in the lives I touch one at a time.
Well, on that note, to begin with, can you share with me, please, why it is so important to have a long-term care game plan? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, my story's pretty much perfect in the fact of what not to do, right? So, as a aging adult, my mom was pretty sharp and on point. And then my dad got sick, and when he passed in 2015, he reached up um, and on his deathbed and said, "Take care of mom." And I said, "Yeah, Dad, I got this." And then he reached up a second time and said, "I said, take care of mom." And I said back, "I got this." I didn't know what I got this meant, right? So I embark with someone who plops themselves on my couch and essentially stayed there for the next 6 years. And I had to learn everything or relearn everything from the beginning. So the mistakes I made out of love, uh, I can help people avoid. And I'm going to give you examples because a story says 1,000 words, and this is where I want to take you down this path. I'm almost sharp as a tack until my dad passed, and dementia and Lewy body dementia kicked in as well as Alzheimer's, right? And when we started, she was just repeated stories a lot. But as time progressed, her needs became greater, and it became obvious that I was going to need some help. And she didn't have a long-term care plan in place. It was me. So I had to learn about removing fall risks. I had to learn about putting the bathroom and her bedroom on the same first floor so she wouldn't have to climb steps. I learned about putting up lifts and rails. And by lifts, I mean I actually took, it's not aesthetically pleasing, but I actually took a giant rope, like the ropes you tie a ship to, and put it in the center of the wall and put knots in it so my mom could pull herself up because she couldn't do it from the push-up portion of the side of the commode, which most of them are. Her arms weren't strong enough, but she could pull herself up. We also put in bed alarms. I learned about adult incontinence diapers, which ones to use, uh, and and rails on the side so she couldn't roll out of bed. And then we learned about medicine distribution because my mom took the same medication 3 days worth 3 times in one morning because she forgot if she did it or not, and she didn't want to miss it. So I had to stay up with her for 24 straight hours. And to keep her up awake for 24 straight hours is like a minor miracle. So we learned about medicine, the proper way to do medicine allocation and taking. I went on with her on doctor visits and took the proper notes so I knew what was actually going on. I created a senior trip portfolio where either the people I arranged for her caretaking or myself went on senior trips with her. And we all kept this in a neat little book I called the Bible that outlined everything from her height, her weight, her blood pressure, her mood swings after certain foods, her exercise. Yes, we did exercise, her listening to the Bible, her listening to music, Everything that went in to the day was there. So when we went to the doctors, we took the book and we showed them this is everything. And when she had a sudden weight gain, like 5 pounds in one day, we knew she was retaining water and we had to do something about it so she wouldn't have congestive heart failure. So that in a big picture can be reduced to a 15-minute conversation with me.
All right. Well, that covers a lot of ground, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there listening who have similar challenges that they're dealing with for a loved one and would be very interested in learning more about the information you have to share. And talking about sharing information, you also talk a lot about tax-free retirement. Why do you feel that that is so important?
Well, as we approach the future, when someone asks you, what do you think taxes are going to do? Are they going to go up or are they going to go down? Most everyone says up. And in 2026, taxes are going to go up across the board by 8%. And I think they're going to continue to rise because there's such a deficit. So if you save money tax free, meaning you keep what you earn, and it's not called a Roth, but you save it in a tax free retirement account, as you accumulate, when you take distribution, the government doesn't get its share, right? You get the share. And when you take the money out, it's all yours to spend. You don't have to send 35% to the government. You distribute it to your loved ones and yourself. That's why it's so important because it's the wave of the future.
So, what are some common questions that you hear and pitfalls that you observe in your business when you're talking to people about this sort of thing?
Most people think A, the 401k is the end all be all. It was invented in 1971 it's related to the stock market and its growth. But really, the 401k is not for you owner's benefit because he gets to write off his contributions and put more money than you get to put in the 401k to shelter himself from personal taxes. When you have a 401k, the most important thing to do is to see if they have in-service distribution, and I did air quotes, in-service distribution. If they do not, that means while you're still at that company, you have to wait till you're 59 and a half or you leave to have access to that money. And that's kind of debilitating because it allows you to save, but you're exposed to stock market risk and downsides. So you could be contributing money for 10, 20, 30, 40 years and have to suffer through growing pains because the stock market dropped, which isn't fair to you because you didn't choose the plan. So that's one thing that I get approached about a lot. The second thing I get approached about a lot is how to properly save for college, whether it's for a grandchild or a child. And it's not a 529 plan. Okay. There's a better way to save for college than a 529 plan. 529 plan has a lot of holes in it. It's another 1970 invention and it doesn't have any flexibility and it really limits you. And say your child is gifted in computers and they need certifications, not at a college, but at a computer school. Well, that doesn't transfer to a computer school. Suppose your child is gifted and gets an academic scholarship or an athletic scholarship. The monies in a 529 can't be used for room and board. So you're really, really limited. So don't put yourself in handcuffs when saving for college.
All right. Well, that sounds like very good advice there. But our audience is largely neurodivergent, disabled, caregivers, parents, and so forth. So talk with me for a bit specifically about what is referred to as special needs planning. What are some of the first things that a caregiver should consider?
So when you say caregiver, I want to be consistent in my answer. A caregiver is a loved one who is not paid to take care of their child or adult child, correct?
Right. A parent, a grandparent, a family member, someone who is I'm going to say that again. Sorry, Chris. That's correct. A parent, a grandparent, a family member, someone who is entrusted with the care of that particular person.
Okay, so we're on the same page. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. First and foremost, if your child has a very limited capacity to potentially work for someone, okay, so they really will not be able to hold a job, and they're going to need constant overseeing, um, almost like a chicken with his little baby ducks, right? And you know that you're just going to oversee them, shower them with love, right? So you want to understand how an ABLE account works. An ABLE account limits the amount of money you can have in assets in your child or adult child's account. And in most states, it's less than $2,000. They did. So second thing is that when you have someone that's on the spectrum, it's not a disease. Okay. So no big deal. Other people have children that are on the spectrum. It's accepted. It's okay. You're going to probably learn more from them than they are from you. And it's a beautiful gift. With that gift comes the responsibility of protection. One of the first things you do is you sign up for Medicare. So you have health care benefits. The second thing you sign up for is Social Security or disability income. When you get disability income, it's going to remain relatively the same, and it's only used for board, a new change, where you live. Once the child reaches 18, that's the time that you write to the state for annual increases in cost of living expenses. Prior to 18, you want to have in place a special needs trust where any monies that come into the foundation of a trust can be used for services that the state does not supply, such as OT, PT, speech, physical therapy that's for fun, activities. This goes into the trust. It gets distributed out through a daily living plan and in the form of a debit card. And now you have some autonomy and freedom, and you can have a caretaker with the child or adult child to ensure that no one takes advantage of them in an Uber or Lyft ride or in a coffee shop, that they don't charge $30 for a cup of coffee instead of $9 for a cup of coffee, right? So if all these things are put into place and you have a daily activity list that you can put in, when I say list, meaning wake up time, favorite type of clothes, favorite subjects to talk about, favorite type of food to eat for lunch, activities, a day in the life from the time they wake up to the time they go to sleep. And you can update it every 6 months without extra cost because as the child's social skills grow, so does the caretaking needs. And so you want to keep a running tab and keep adding to it. So God forbid something happens to you, the caretaker, someone can jump right in and see the notes and say, okay, I know what I'm doing today. This is how I conduct my activities.
All right. Well, that all certainly makes a lot of sense, and it's definitely a lot of things to think about. So, what do you feel is the most important takeaway for our listeners from our conversation? And what haven't I asked you that you feel is something that would be very important for our listeners to be aware of?
It's extremely important to have an open mind and an open heart for change. And by that, I mean there are always new experimental activities. There are experimental vitamins and supplements that you could take that may or may not improve your love's acceptance. By acceptance, I mean this. There are certain things that you could take that are not drugs that improve the receptiveness or the openness or the ability to communicate or to include oneself in a circle of fun. And sometimes when you're neurodivergent or atypical, you kind of sit on the side and play in your own world and put things in pairs of twos and circles, and you're there. And then there's opportunities for you to socialize. These new medicines that are all natural help break down that barrier because your body doesn't process heavy metals that are consumed in the foods that you eat that we don't even know exist, right? And it enables you to disperse them through urination and eliminate the fogginess. So it may work. There's no magic pill. It may not work, but it's okay to try it and record it because in the end, all you want is another bullet in the holster of social wellness so that your child can live the best version of their life. And if you're open to change, then you're open to new opportunities for them to grow and experience everything to its fullest.
All right. Well, I'm sure that our listeners can appreciate that. We're all of us here in this community are always looking for different ways, new ways, things that we haven't heard about, that we'd like to try to enhance the lives of our loved ones, to help them deal with certain challenges they might be facing. Of course, you want to be very careful, right? You want to be careful, make sure it's vetted and reliable, and that that you're not going down a path that is something that you might regret at some point.
Right.
Right. But as long as you do your due diligence and do your homework, I think that's the most important thing. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. I agree totally. I would also say this, that nothing replaces the love of a parent for caretaking of a child, right? And the biggest gift you could give to a parent is time. So helping someone else out who has a atypical child or neurodivergent family, okay, is to give them time to take a shower, eat a meal in peace, and maybe, heaven forbid, catch a movie all in one night, okay? And just exhale and know that when they get home, Johnny or Susie is going to be okay. And you just were allowed to escape reality for 4 to 5 hours, right? That's the greatest gift you could give someone, that time just to clear the decks. You do not know how valuable that is until you get that respite time.
Self-care is so important, and so
Yes.
many people forget about that, right? They put
Yep.
themselves last, and that's something that everyone should definitely be aware of. I agree.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah. So, in speaking on that, right? When someone asks me, what is the biggest difference between an atypical family and a typical family? And an atypical family is always waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the next promotion, the next disturbance, the next meltdown, and they don't put a time into self-care, but they have a tendency to ignore long-term care. And by long-term care, I mean having a protection plan in place for the child that is going to be growing up neurodivergent. And then figuring out a budget of protection. And it could be as low as $30 a month to the sky's the limit depending on the incomes, because most families eventually become single income because of the caretaking. So it makes things tight in the home place. So having someone that's professional look at this 6 letter curse word called a budget and sit down with them with a budget for today, a budget for retirement, and a budget for Johnny. So God forbid you don't outlive your child, that the state doesn't have the main control, that you create a game plan of love and protection and everyone gets to honor it.
Well, on that note, on that very well put note, I want to thank you for your time, Bill, and for sharing your story with us today.
So thank you so much. If you want to reach out to me, I would love the opportunity to speak with you on a one-on-one basis. My cell phone number is 267-278-5062, 267-278-5062. And to reach me via my website, which is Perfectly Imperfect Families, please do so and visit it. It's just three W's, perfectly, perfectly, imperfect, imperfect, families, families.com. And take a look at all the data there. There's plenty of articles, videos. It's all about helping you and making a difference for you because in the end, I want to be a resource so that when we interact together, I could make a successful person like yourself more successful.
Thank you, Bill. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast. You can find it on Apple iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, and other popular platforms. We'd appreciate you taking the time to leave us a review. You can also listen to the podcast on YouTube at ARP Social, where you'll find bonus content. And be sure to follow us on Facebook or Instagram to get up-to-date notifications about the latest news and episodes. If you would like more information on anything else we've covered on the Autism Resource Podcast, visit us online at autismresourceproject.org/podcast. Be sure to check out our growing website often, since we are continually adding useful information and resources. I want to thank our listeners for spending part of their day with us. This is the Autism Resource Podcast, and I'm Gilda Evans, reminding you to take care of yourself and that special person in your life.